You know, I didn't expect them to actually add some more mods to make Void builds actually even stronger, but they did. So today we're going to be taking a look at an updated build that uses some of the new mods, more specifically the All Gods Right and also Void Renewal mods, to essentially just make existing Void builds just even stronger. So if you guys have been playing on some Void builds or looking for a Void build for your Prismatic Hunter, then this is going to be the perfect one for you. We're not really going to have like a specific weapon that we're running this with. We're actually going to have multiple weapons, and I'm going to give you a couple of different choices. So once we get to the exotic, we'll talk about those. But yeah, this build pretty much gives you everything. It gives you weakens, it gives you extra damage, it gives you tons of survivability with invisibility, over shields, devour. You can pretty much do just everything with this build. This can do it all. But let's not waste any more time, let's get into it. And today we're going to be starting off a little bit different. We're actually going to be starting off by taking a look at the new mods and how they're going to make our Void builds just essentially be upgraded. So the very first one is going to be the All Gods Right. After picking up a Void Breach, dealing damage with a Void weapon creates a range-seeking projectile. And it kind of looks like this. The other perk that we're also going to be using is going to be Void Renewal. Whenever we have Devour active, our Void Weapon Final Blows have a chance to create Void Breaches. And the Void Breaches are very important. They essentially proc All Goods Right, but they also work with a mod that we already had, which is Supernova. And this one's going to give you a weakening pulse just to make things a little bit easier to kill. So whenever we pick up a Void Breach, we're going to be spawning those Seekers, as well as making everything also weaken, so they take more damage from everything, and they're more likely to die to the Seekers, which will spawn more Seekers. And the final crucial mod for this build is going to be Power from Pain. Whenever we kill weakened targets, we gain Devour, and if we rapidly defeat weakened targets, it will also spawn a Void Breach. So it gives us another way of spawning Void Breaches, either by just having Devour and giving us Devour very easily, or if we do boost it, just by giving us Void Breaches every time we kill something that's weakened. And once we spawn some Void Breaches, then we can apply more Weaken and make some more of those Void Storms, which spawns more Breaches, and this is just a never-ending cycle. And Void Renewal is just there to kind of add a little more consistency, especially we can easily get Devour. Now for the exotic weapons that we're going to pair this up with, you basically are going to have three different choices. The very first one is the brand new shotgun, the Slayer's Fang. This thing works really well with this build. It basically has built-in weaken, so it already works really well with the mods, just making tons of Void Breaches, constantly making us invisible, giving us Devour very easily, and also being a shotgun, it does some very high like close range damage. And the invisibility definitely adds a lot of survivability to the shotgun, being able to just constantly appear and disappear from the enemy's radar essentially makes you just like this silent assassin. You basically come in, make a bunch of enemies disappear with your shotgun, then you disappear, and then you just basically do it all over again once you reposition yourself. If you decided to go with Repulsor Brace, that adds even more survivability to the weapon, since you're going to be getting tons of Void over shields, and overall it's just going to be a really good time with this shotgun. It is also really good against those overloads, so you can even deal with champions with this shotgun as well. Now the second choice here is going to be the Buried Bloodline. I know not everyone has this, but this one is also very good. It's a special ammo sidearm, so it already has a lot of ammo, it does tons of damage, and also if you have the Catalyst, you can even apply Weaken. So just like with the shotgun, you have a very easy time getting Weaken, and this one can get Devour even without the Weakening being involved. So it gives you another way of getting Devour, and it's just a really good weapon. All of these weapons, by the way, are going to have like constant volatile rounds as well. So we're all going to be just doing tons of AoE damage as well with the volatile rounds. And both of them are going to be pretty good. And the last one is going to be the exotic auto rifle from last season, the Core of 1. This thing has tons of ammo, does tons of damage. And while it doesn't have like a built-in way to weaken targets like the other two, you're still going to be weakening thanks to your mods. So you're still going to be weakening a lot of things. And with all the ammo that you have on this thing, you're never going to run into ammo issues. So this one's going to be very comfortable. It does tons of damage, it has tons of range, and you can be very safe with it. You're also always going to have those volatile rounds, so it even adds a little bit of ad clear. And pretty much it's going to come down to It pretty much is going to come down to your preference. All of them are going to be fantastic. I used this build with all 3 of those weapons, and they all perform really well. Now for an exotic piece of armor, we're going to be on the Grafalcon chest piece, or we have the exotic class item with the Spirit of Grafalcon, that will work as well, since it pretty much has like the main perk that we're looking for. We essentially use one of the volatile rounds out of it. We don't really care about the rest of the exotic perk. And this is going to help us just constantly proc our invisibility, constantly put like debuffs on enemies, but the main purpose of it is really just to give us a consistent way of proccing the invisibility, so we can always be safe and never run into any issues. And now let's actually take a look at how we have our subclass set up. Now for our subclass right here, we of course are on the Prismatic Hunter, and for your super, I would recommend that you go with either the Silence is Cool or the Silk Strike are the ones that I think work the best with this build. But to be completely honest, you don't really have to use any specific super. You want to go with the Shadow Shot, you can. You want to go with Storm's Edge for whatever reason, you can. It won't really affect the build too much, but I definitely like these two a little bit better. Now for our class ability, you want to go for the Gambler's Dodge, just so we can use our melees a lot more often. And speaking about the melees, you want to go with the Withering Blade, so we can slow, and that's pretty much it. So we can slow, freeze. It basically applies a debuff, so it gets the whole invisibility thing started, and after that, we can pretty much just keep using our volatile rounds. But to get all that started, we do need to kill an enemy that's affected by a debuff, and the Withering Blade, and also our grenade, just kind of makes that very easily happen. So both of these are going to be really good. They're also great against champions, overloads, and unstoppables, since we can slow and freeze them. Now for the aspects, we are going to be on the Gunpowder Gamble, as well as the Styled Executioner. Now invisibility is a big part of the build, just to add survivability, especially on some of the higher end activities, where things can very easily kill you if you're caught out in the open. So that's what the invisibility is for. And it's also going to give us those constant volatile rounds, so we can just constantly proc the invisibility, so we can do more ad clear, so we can do more damage. Overall, our weapon is just going to be better with the Styled Executioner. Now the second one, I decided to go with Gunpowder Gamble. This can proc invisibility as well, whenever you get some kills with the Gunpowder Gamble, so it's another way of proccing it. And it's also just really good at ad clear, at doing damage, at stunning unstoppable champions. So it's just adds a little more to the build, in the way of that grenade. And since we are going to be getting kills with abilities or the volatile rounds, all of those will help us to power up our Gunpowder Gamble, so we can use it a lot more often. Lastly, for the fragments, we have Facet of Protection, so we can get some damage resistance whenever we're surrounded. After that, we're going to have the Facet of Purpose. Whenever we pick up an Orb of Power, we're going to get either Whirlwind Mail, Frost Armor, Restoration, Amplified, or Overshield. It kind of depends on like what you went with your super. That's why I ended up telling you that the Stasis or the Strand Supers actually works the best, since they just give you straight up damage resistance, making you hard to kill. But some of the other ones are still good, like the Restoration or the Overshields. The Overshields do actually give you damage reduction as well, but you don't get like a full Overshield from one orb, which is kind of like the downside of it. We also have Facet of Solitude, which is going to be another way of applying the debuff, meaning that it's another way that we can start off our invisibility chain by applying Sever. So it's another way of getting the build online without actually having to rely on our abilities, just by getting some crits. After that, we're going to have the Facet of Sacrifice. Whenever we have an Arc, Solar, or Void debuff, we're going to get some bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. Since we're going to be using a Void weapon most of the time, we're not really going to struggle getting the light part of the Transcendence, but the Darkness does kind of struggle a bit since we're mostly relying on our abilities for it. So having this does equalize it a kind of a bit, since we're always going to have a Void buff, meaning that we're always going to be getting some of that extra Darkness Transcendence energy. And the last one is going to be the Facet of Awakening, and this essentially just makes it so we can spawn more Void Breaches, since all it takes is just damage. And since we're just doing Void damage, it's always probably, most of the time, going to be Void Breaches. And yeah, that just works really well with our build, since it's all about creating Void Breaches and abusing the things that we get once we pick up those Void Breaches. And lastly, for the armor, we have Void Siphon, Special Ammo Scout, Special Ammo Finder. Since all of our main weapons are special weapons, we definitely want to have as much special ammo as we can find, and we're also going to have another way of just making special if you really just can't get lucky with the finders. For the gauntlets, we're going to have Void Loader, impact induction, and heavy-handed, so we can make some orbs and also reload our weapons faster. This is not a requirement for all the weapons. Some of them reload faster than the others. I feel like it works really well if you're using like the core 1, but it may not really work with the shotgun, since the shotgun ray has a really good reload speed and also another way of like auto reloading itself. So you might not need boy loader. You could just switch it over for something else, like if you want to have instead like another focusing strike or momentum transfer. That's up to you. Now for the chest piece, it's basically just the resistances, not really anything special here. Pretty much just match them to whatever the threat is. For the boots, we have Absolution, Void Weapon Search, and also Recuperation. The Void Weapon Search can be a bit of an overkill, considering on like the activities you're doing. So if you're doing some activities where you don't really need it, you could instead go for a Void Scavenger. Or if you feel like you're not really getting enough ammo, just switch it over to a Void Scavenger. And lastly, for the class item, we're going to have Reaper to make more orbs, Bomber so we can get our grenade faster, and also Special Finisher. And this is the way that we're going to be making special ammo in case we need it. If we just cannot get any special ammo to drop, we could make it with our Armor Charge. And since this is like the only Armor Charge mod we're actually using, especially if we decided to not go with a Weapon Search, you can pretty much just use it whenever you want. Pretty much every time that you see that you have an Armor Charge, try to get a finisher so you can spawn some special and basically never run into any special issues. Now when it comes to playing with this build, it is very simple, and that's what I love about it. You basically just have to get to that first invisibility. So use your grenade, use your melee, maybe just try to get a couple of rapid precision hits on a target. As long as you can get a debuff on the target and then kill that target and get your invisibility going, that's pretty much it. After that, as you get kills with your weapon, you're going to spawn void breaches, and then you're just going to start weakening stuff, creating those void seekers, getting devour, and after that you just get going. Basically the worst part about this build is just actually getting to the invisibility, but it's not even that bad because getting to invisibility, it is pretty simple. All you need is one kill, and after that you're going to have invisibility for the rest of whatever you're doing till you either die, all of the enemies die, or you complete whatever you're doing. That's pretty much it. Make sure that you spam your grenades, make sure you spam your abilities. You're gonna have a lot of like Transcendence energy as well, so make sure that you use that as well. Whenever you see a Void Breach, try to grab it so you can apply the Weaken and just spawn those Seekers. They can actually put in a lot of work, especially against some of the bigger targets. You wouldn't expect it, but they do. This build was already pretty great even before they added these mods. The mods just pretty much elevated the build to be even better. I'm sure you guys have heard of Falcons. You know, it's kind of like a meme that every time a new void weapon gets released, your Falcons just keeps getting better, and that's pretty much what happened with this as well. But regardless, thank you for watching, thank you for stopping by. I'll leave the build in the description below in case you guys want to check it out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone, have a good rest of your day. Peace.